Okay, and we are back with this. This is episode 2, and today we're going to be going over 2D tracking and off-screen tracking as well. Expressions, Keylight effect, CC glass, interactive and exponential interactive lighting, as well as floor maps. Okay, and we're back for part 2 of these tutorial videos. Also, these next upcoming editing videos will be like raw, cut to the point. There won't be so much effects on here, as you can see. None of that, none of this, none of that. Okay, we're just gonna get straight down into it. Another thing before we get into this is I'm going to try to put timestamps on this video. So if you're looking for a specific effect or an edit, then you can quickly get to it just by looking down in the timeline of the video. Anyway, okay, so we are in this scene of when my brother gets knocked down to the ground, and there's slow motion sparks, and there has to be some 2D tracks going on here. Okay, and how I did that 2D track is with this floor null right here, this floor null object. We went over some basics of null objects in the last video. Essentially, how I did this, and there's a specific trick that actually caught me off guard, and it's not talked about a lot. This floor null is just some tracking data for Eclipse camera movement, so the sparks can match it, and it looks like the sparks are actually there, not just floating around. So this has to do with, I guess you call it a floor map. I don't know if it's actually what's called, but that's what I call it for these spark effects. Okay, so what I did, I just went to my source clip right here, right down here, and then I went to tracker. And if you don't see tracker, go to window, and then go down to where you see tracker, and then enable that. I already have it enabled, so that's why I see it over here on the right hand side. Track motion. We want to track the motion. Then you're gonna get a window that pops up, which is gonna be your source layer inside of that source layer, not to be confused with your overall composition with all of your other effects and layers in it. You're going to grab this, and what I did is I put it on the part that has the most contrast within the scene that is not going to get covered up. So this light would have been good, but as the scene goes throughout, it does get covered up, as you can see. The windows of the house and the light is the most, it's the brightest parts of the video. That doesn't move. It needs to move with your camera, not having it move with the actor or whoever's falling or whoever's moving. If I tracked it on the lightsaber, that would track the lightsaber's movement, not the camera's movement. Anyway, let's just put this tracking point on this window, and we went over the bounding boxes in last video. You want to just readjust these. Honestly, these don't need that much readjustment. You're gonna go over here to the right hand side, only position. We don't need anything else, just position. Then we are going to press the play button, analyze forward. It's gonna go analyze forward in your scene, and it's going to make tracking points, and you can pause whenever you want. If it goes too quick and too fast, you can press these arrows that just analyze one frame. So it's one frame at a time. It's just with each click, just to make sure you get it to where it needs to, and you don't need to make any readjustments. Okay, so we're gonna just keep on going with this. It's doing a pretty good job, so just keep on going. And oh shoot, it just went off screen. You're gonna be like,
what the hell? I can't track now because it went off screen. There's nothing to track to. There's nothing to track. I can't do it. I can't.
Okay, there's actually a fix to this, and this fix is not talked about much. I spent forever trying to figure this out. When I first did it, I was having many problems because I needed to have a 3D track. I couldn't do a 3D camera tracker because the scene doesn't have any contrast anywhere, and the tracking points would just go off screen anyway. So what to do here is you would go right before the frame ends. Let's see where it messes up. Okay, so we're gonna keep going, and right there messes up. So Control Z, we're gonna press Control Z to undo that last mistake it made. Okay, so after pressing Control Z, you're going to press Alt on your keyboard and move to a different location where there's contrast, that it's still in your scene. So for example, this light is still in my scene, still has contrast. Actually, you know what? We're not gonna do that. We're gonna do over here where there is, I mean, this is optimal, this light, but it does go off screen eventually. We're gonna go over here on the side of this shed. So you want to Alt and drag it. You don't want to just drag it, because dragging it's going to move the entire thing and move it to a new spot. Your keyframe tracking data will move to a new spot completely. What pressing Alt is going to do is going to offset that track. So it's going to make tracking points along where you put it, but it's going to offset those tracking points to where it actually needs to go. Okay, and to further exemplify that is we would press Alt on your keyboard, like I mentioned earlier, to where the arrow turns white, and you would drag this, keep pressing Alt, drag this to where you have your next high contrast point within the scene. Okay, actually, I do know of a better spot I can put this at. I didn't zoom all the way out. I could put it on this bucket where this light is. That's actually perfect for that. Okay, so I'm gonna keep holding Alt, and I'm just gonna drag this over to this light instead. This is way better. Then I will play forward right there in my scene. Boom, it did it perfectly. So it's gonna look like you have two different tracking. You're like,
what the heck? This is so off. This doesn't make any sense. Why is it down there?
okay, well, until you actually apply it to your null object, it's going to look like that. So right click in an empty space, like right here, go to new, null object. I'm just gonna throw it all the way up here, up in the layers, just so you can see it. I'm gonna change color, whatever, so you can see it better. We're also gonna rename it floor null map, whatever. I even spell. Oh my god. Okay, so then edit target up in here in the tracker settings. Boom, here, floor null map. So set it to your floor null map you just made. Press OK. All right, everything's good to go. You have your tracking points. You have your floor null map. Press apply. X and Y. Yes. Okay. So then it looks like it's how it's supposed to. You have that track of that window. It's still where that window is. It's just off screen because you offsetted it to this light instead. You changed it. And look at that. It's just perfect. This is a perfect track. I'm actually going to get rid of this and delete it because I already have one made from when I actually made the video. So then what you do to actually apply this null to say something you want to 3D incorporate into your scene, like my sparks I have on the ground. As you can see, they move with the camera, the ones that are on the ground. But you press P on your floor null map, and you'd also press P on your spark effect you just made. But you'd have your spark effect. It looks something like this. Obviously, when I unsolo that, doesn't move with the camera. Just kind of stays on the image. As you can see, it just stays. It looks really, really fake. So after opening up those two properties, you'd take the pick whip icon right here. This is the pick whip. You would just bring that up to your other position property you have in your floor null map. And there you go. Now it is tracked. But we have a new issue arising here. It is tracked, but it is not in the right area. And since it is tied to this null object, you can't move it. It's literally an unmovable object. You can't mess with these settings down here and move it. You just pick whip that to your null. So how you get around this? How you gonna make these sparks land where they need to be? They need to be over down here on the bottom of the screen, not all the way up here where this null was created. There's two ways to do this. One way works every time. One way works all of the time. So let's get into one way how to do it. Okay, so the first way that works some of the time, not all of the time, is applying an offset effect to your spark effect, not the null object, the spark effect. This doesn't work all the time because this only moves the sparks within the composition of the spark effect, if that makes sense. So it's only going to move the sparks within this window here. Hold on, I might make it a different color, red. Within this red box, it's only going to move the sparks within that box, and so it's going to clip down here, and it's not going to show. So if I move the sparks down, as you can see, it just clips. It doesn't do anything. But if you need to make a slight adjustment with the sparks, then this would do just fine. To actually make a big adjustment, like kind of what we need in this scene, with the sparks going all the way down here, we would have to mess with expression. I know this is crazy. This is coding. Oh my gosh, you're gonna be
I can't do coding. I don't know. I'm just trying to video. I don't want to mess with JavaScript. I don't want to mess with coding. I don't know how to do it. I don't know.
Is actually easier than you think it is. Alt click the stopwatch in position. Right now, what we need to do is offset the null. Since the sparks are parented to the null, we have to offset that null so it tracks with the sparks. I didn't come up with this code. I'm not a coding genius, but after clearing that, you're going to type var offset. Okay, x equals, let's just put 0 for right now. And at the very end of any JavaScript code, you need to put a colon or semicolon. Press enter, var offset y. Same thing, 0. And then after that, position, hold on, go to position plus bracket, offset x, offset y, semicolon, and bracket, and you're done. That's literally it. So like I said earlier, I would just I'll try to put a link in the description if I remember to. I would just take this code and put it on a note document on your computer, and then you could just access it whenever you need it. But anyway, you have to change these numbers based on your scene though. So this is 0, 0 in the x. So this is right on the null is what this is what the 0, 0 means. We need to offset that null. So positive numbers within the x-axis, we'll move it to the right, negative to the left. Same thing with the, well, not the same thing with the y. The y, negative will go down. Okay, negative will go up for some reason. That's kind of opposite, but negative will go up, positive will go down. So I'll offset it like to 0, 200, and that offsets that null to be within where I need it to be in my scene. So that is how you do floor maps, expressions, null objects, all that. I mean, you got the whole thing laid out there for you. Okay, and for this next scene, we're gonna go over how I did the gun effect and how I made it look kind of all futuristic with the ammo counter, the light ray, and the HUD optic for the scope. Okay, so the first thing I did in this scene was actually make the gun orange tip black, like that, so it looked like that, so it didn't look like an airsoft gun, it looked like a real gun. All I did there was just make keyframe points on a mask, and I applied the Keylight effect, a bunch of Keylight effects actually, and I just mapped the Keylight to the color of the orange tip with the eyedropper, and then I just took that and made the screen gain a little bit less, and I just duplicated that effect 2 more times so it got gradually darker to match the rest of the gun, and that's how it looks like this. So going back into the main composition. Okay, so to first get this gun into like this almost like liquefy type of futuristic effect is I first rotored out the gun with the rotor brush tool we went over in last episode. For this scene, I actually just rotoscoped the entire hand with the gun and then separately rotor brushed the hand itself and just placed that on top so it covers the other hand I rotoscoped, leaving the gun. If I just solo this, the effect that I apply to the first roto will not affect this since the hand is on top of it. The effects that I applied to this gun was the rotor brush, so that's rotor brushed out, and then the CC glass effect gives it that all warped kind of futuristic tiled texture. I just keyframed the displacement, height, and softness. The softness would change how soft it is. Height changed how, kind of gave it almost a 3D look, kind of like a mosaic tile look. And I just made the displacement a very big negative value just so it looks more and more distorted and futuristic. So after that, I applied a Lightwrap, and Crate's Lightwrap is a plugin, but it is a free plugin on Productions Crate's store, and it's just free. All you gotta do is download it. So all I did was make my background layer my pre-comp, which is my source footage. So it takes the highlights of that composition or video or source layer, whatever it is, to then create a wrap around whatever you place the effect on. But with light wraps in general, honestly, the less is better. It'll look very unnatural if you have a big light wrap around something. And then finally what I did is I just tinted the gun to match the CC light in the background. Since this light is blue, I mapped the black to blue and then the white to white. And I just lowered the tint effect massively to make it blend in with the CC light. Okay, for the laser, all I have is just a PNG image off of Google. For the lens flare, if I solo that, I made a mask around that because the original image, if I take the mask off, you can see that I positioned it and rotated it to where you can definitely see a big border and box around it. You can just see that's very dumb looking. So I just masked that on there and added a lot of feather to it. And then I just added ultra glow to just make the reds pop out a little bit more and make it, you know, actually have like a glow effect. And then I parented this video to a 2D track I did to a null object of the gun's movement. If I actually, I'm gonna lower the quality real quick. If I lower the quality, okay, so if I play this back, I actually have this null 2D tracked to this iron sight up here. I actually took a little bit of some manual keyframes to get right, but that's what I did. That's also how I got this ammo counter on here 2D tracked as well. I think it's with the same track, but this time I could actually get away with that offset effect. It was just a little off since the null was down here. Just shift the center to a different position that matches right on start of where the laser comes out of. So that is an instance where the offset does work instead of doing expression. Okay, the next thing I did to make the actual laser, not just the flare, was go here, make a solid. I just right clicked new, made a solid, and I just put the pen tool where my gun is. I have this offsetted in a null, so that's why it's a little off. I apply the Saber effect to that, and I messed with some settings to make it to where the end size is shorter than the start size, so it looks like it kind of dissipates out. And I messed with the color, made it red, just messed with different things, just get a look that I wanted. And I added a fast box blur effect with a blur radius of 1 just to kind of blur that out, make it not so harsh. And this beginning sequence is also just manually tracked to the source, and I just applied an offset to that. And for the ammo counter, I just made 3 white boxes, spaced them out evenly, applied an offset to that with some glow, 2D tracked that onto the gun like I did the other effects, and then I just animated that with the gun reloading to where it's really bright at first, and then you can actually see the individual shots. Finally, to go over is the HUD Optic. Here, this is just a animation I got off, I think Production Crate or Google. I'm not even sure. Might even be YouTube. I don't know. So I just, same thing again. I just applied an offset to that parent it to a null, and then I applied some S rays to it so it looked more interesting, like there was actually, like the light was coming towards you. Oh, also I made these layers 3D, even though I didn't have a 3D camera, just so I can move them if I open the position properties actually. And I messed with the orientation so it looks like it's facing the person shooting the gun and not towards the camera. You could also have got this same effect if you just used a basic 3D effect on there. And you could have messed with the swivel and tilt with how you like. Same thing, just different ways to do it. And something else that is not talked about a lot is having the light bounce off certain objects in your scene when it's like, say like something pops up on your screen. So like this ammo counter or this optic here, how the light is going to bounce around your scene. Here's what I mean by that. These adjustment layers up here that I have highlighted does accomplish that. These are just keyframe masks. So I just just use the pen tool up here, made a mask over the whole composition, added a lot of feather to it, and I just keyframed it to where the movement happens to my hand. And I made a curves adjustment to make it brighter. So as this ammo counter flashes on the screen, the hand is really close to that ammo counter, right? So it's going to interact with the light that just appeared on the screen. So it's going to have some fall off, as you can see. So if I turn that off, there's no light. It kind of looks unrealistic. With it on, it looks more natural the way the light is coming off. So I just animated that and it slowly fades off. And I made multiple of these on different parts of the hand. Even down here, the way the light interacts with the rest of this clip. Okay, and this is my second time recording this because the dang OBS didn't record. Okay, anyway, the first thing I did to achieve these spark fly hit up effects and the dirt kicking up off the ground is I first, rotoed out the subject or my brother or the actor or whatever you want to call it. So this is my brother here just being on the ground and rolling like an idiot. Sorry, no offense. After I rotoed him, I got the stock footage of a green screen explosion dirt kick up effect. Okay, so the stock footage explosion I got was just off YouTube. Had a green screen background. So what I did is I just took a Keylight effect and threw that on there and got rid of the green screen. Now, if you had a black background instead, you would select the blending mode in here and press screen. But this was a green screen, so just normal, use a Keylight effect. After I did that, I masked out the bottom, so there's not such a hard edge here. So I went to the pen tool and made an oval shape around the dirt explosion effect. And then I double tapped M on my keyboard to open up all of the mask properties. I set the mode to subtract, and then I go to mask feather and make that to a semi-high value. Just play with it and see what works best. Like 40 is pretty good for this. It just blends into the ground. There's not such of that hard edge there. After that, I applied a curves effect to make it a little bit brighter. And then the tint effect, which really makes a difference here, map the black to black and then the white to this darkish brownish color. The tint all the way up to the maximum. Now, something I did learn after I actually already made this scene was a different effect called the tritone effect. You can play with highlights, midtones, and shadows, and so that's for even more control. Anyway, that's just what I did. I also applied this effect to another 2D track with a null, offset that null with an expression like we did earlier. So they just tracked on to the scene. I actually used one of these rocks right here to track the null. The box isn't showing up there right here because I have that expression to offset it. But if I were to get rid of the expression, then it would show up right here where I did that track on that little rock right there. Anyway, after that, I wanted some smoke after the hit to kind of hide the mask we made to the dirt, blending between the ground and the dirt effect. So I just got another smoke effect coming in from the ground here. I did offset, and I did a curves adjustment, and I dropped those highlights down a lot so it blended in with the environment. If I didn't blend that in, it would be way too blown out, and this looks like kind of unrealistic. So just add that curves on there, drop those highlights. Okay, and the next thing I did for a cool effect was have the sparks fly up too with the dirt while it hits the ground. So for the particle, I just made a solid, applied CC particle world in there like we did with our spark effect in our last episode. But this time I made an upward animation with the animation fractal uni, I don't fucking know, and that preset makes the particles go upwards. And then I just messed with the gravity and velocity to make it shoot far enough and make sure it realistically falls down. But to show you how they land in the floor maps, which I'm going to go over right now, Let me go back. Let me go to the first spark hit. Okay, so this is the first spark hit. And as you can see, they fly up and then they go down and they land on the ground and they kind of bounce and then they fade off and die. So we go into the CC particle world effect. We go down to floor underneath physics. Now this I got stuck on for a while. So I'm going to try to go kind of in depth in this. So floor position, if I unsolo this, I'm going to go to the floor position. The floor position is going to be kind of not where you really think it's going to be at. So it's kind of like right here. This is your virtual floor. So I'm going to set it right there. That's where I want all my sparks to land within this floor plane. But I'm going to go down to extras, and then in extras, I'm going to go to effect camera. And you want to change the rotation, the X rotation, to not be 0. You want to have it kind of like tipping towards the camera. If I had it 0, those sparks would not look realistic at all. So I had it at 17, so you can see all the sparks laid out on the ground. The farther ones will be away from the camera, obviously, and the closer ones will be kind of towards the camera. You wouldn't see that necessarily if it was at 0. Also, the same thing applies with Y and Z. Based off different scenes, it's going to be different every time. There's some scenes I messed with the Y and had it kind of at a slant based on the camera, and there's some I even messed with the Z position as well. But after that, I found that these settings right here give the most kind of realistic bouncy effect that I was looking for. You could have them stick to the floor and just kind of be like glue and die off. Like this, they wouldn't bounce at all. As you can see, they're just falling and just sticking to the ground. That's kind of boring, so I just did bouncing is 60, random bouncing is 60, bounce spread 60. So it's going to spread over greater distance. There's going to be each bounce of each individual spark will be different from each other. It won't be all the same, and the bounciness height will be 60 as well. So that's how that looks, very realistic. And that was also 2D tracked in the scene, thrown behind the roto, so it is not on the actor, my brother, whatever the fuck, and those sparks just go on the ground and fade out. Looks pretty nice. So after I achieved the dirt effect, the smoke effect, and the spark effect, the last touch of seasoning, whatever the hell you want to say, whatever they say, what do they say? I don't know what they say. I actually don't know what they say. We're gonna add some adjustment layers with some light effects. So this is what it looks like with the adjustment layers. This is what it looks like without the adjustment layers. It looks like this. Kind of boring, kind of fake, honestly, because there's no light emitting off from the sparks or the Saber. So to help with that, I first added an adjustment layer with some just basic VR glow on it. And I keyframe that to match when it hits the ground, and then to when it comes back up with the Luma threshold. You can't really see it that well though, since the lightsaber's already bright. Without it and with it, it just kind of makes it completely white. So this next adjustment layer is kind of the effect where it's gonna have some more fall off. So as I pan, it's going to get brighter as it hits. This is me toggling it on and off, so you can see the difference. It is on the ground and it's impacting the grass around it and the right side of my brother's cloak. And then finally, to amplify those two, have a more of an exponential fall off instead of a linear fall off, which is kind of what you want to aim for doing glow effect. You don't want to do one single glow effect and have it just fall off. You want to have a couple layers of that glow effect to have it exponentially fall off. But the last glow hit I did was over the entire composition, and that's right when he hits right here, and that's with not VR threshold, that's with a curves effect instead. And I just did the RGB curves, and I just did the RGB curves like this, and I keyframed them. So right before he hits, it's going to get stronger, and then it's just going to have that fall off when it comes down. So those 3 different light effects I think help amplify and make it look more realistic in the final cut. Okay, and that's gonna do it in today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something new from it. I thought this project was a perfect example to showcase different effects and different things that aren't talked about a lot. How you can really apply these to your videos, because a lot of tutorials is just like a simple 5-second clip, and that's just the effect. You don't even see it within like a real footage type scenario. But with all being said, we will see you in part 3, which is going to all be about this space effect right here. In all of the space with 3D cameras, spaceship, 3D models, bunch of different effects. This was actually a lot of fun to put together this space scene. Lastly, if you haven't checked out the War Star video, which is what this whole series is about, I highly suggest go watch that. I'll throw annotation up on the screen so you can click and watch it. I'll see you at episode 3 of this walkthrough series.